So, you're thinking about driving your van down to Baja and you want to camp on some beautiful beaches just like this. Well, I got 7 tips for you that's going to make your trip a hell of a lot smoother. And stick around because you're going to want to hear them all. So, I've been coming to Baja a couple times now. Been down 2 out of the 3 past winters, and these are some tips that I've learned from my personal experience and also learned from other people's mistakes along the way. So let's get into it. Tip number 1 is when you cross the border, you need to get your FMM. You need it if you plan on staying in Baja longer than 7 days, which I imagine most of you are planning on doing that. Both times that I crossed the border into Baja, the border officer did not remind me to go get your FMM, and you absolutely need it. So when you cross the border, don't forget you got to pull over, go inside the building, find the officers that are going to give you the FMM. It's not that expensive. It's about $70-ish Canadian, like $50-ish American, and you need to keep it with your passport in case the police or military ask. We'll get into that later. I've personally never had that happen to me, but you need it to cross back into the States, and if you don't have it, it's going to be a pretty big issue. So, tip number 2 is always be aware when you're driving. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but when you're driving in Canada and the US, especially down the highways, it gets pretty easy just to kind of zone out and just pay attention to the car that's in front of you. But when you're driving in Baja, you are going to want to pay attention to the road because the road conditions aren't that great. Even though they have gotten a lot better over the past couple of years, there still is some stretches with gnarly potholes that you're not going to want to hit. Trust me, it's not a lot of fun. And with the road conditions, there's also topes or speed bumps, and they are by far the most unforgiving speed bumps I have ever encountered in my life, and you will be lucky if you even get a warning that they're coming up, and you'll be lucky if they're painted yellow and not just the same color as the road. And a pro tip for you, when you're driving down the highway and you see the speed limit change to 40 kilometers an hour when you're kind of going through a town, about 90% of the time there's gonna be a speed bump. So if you see that speed limit change, be aware and slow right down, because in my van anyway, Sprinter van, hitting those things even at 40 kilometers an hour is brutal. Like, we'll send anything in your van flying. It's not fun. So you really just want to take it slow when you're kind of driving through those areas, because like I said, they are super unforgiving. Which leads into tip number 3. And tip number 3 is sort of an obvious one, but it's do not drive at night. It goes along with saying how bad the road conditions can be, but on top of that, there's very little light pollution here in Baja. Like, I don't think there's really any street lights, especially on the highway. And when it gets dark, it gets dark. Like, you're not going to be able to see really anything. A lot of the roads here are very hilly and windy along cliffs, so it can be pretty dangerous that way. And on top of that, here in Baja, they have free range cattle, and the cows like to lie across the pavement at night. So you're not going to want to be dealing with that in the pitch black. And kind of an experience I have with that is last time I was in Baja, I was at this beach, made some friends that happened to be traveling out of an RV. And so since they're traveling out of an RV, they had like a little Astro van with them. And one of the days I had to drive into town to go get groceries or whatever, and they were nice enough to just let me use their Astro van, so I didn't have to like move my van or like lose my spot kind of deal. And I kind of waited a little too long to go into town because on the way back the sun had already set, and it was only like a 30-minute drive, but man, was it sketchy. Like, you can't see anything, and like I was talking about before, how curvy and windy the roads are, like you don't see that change until like the last minute, and a lot of the time it's like over a cliff, so it can be pretty dangerous. And like I was saying, there were cows on the road, so you just really, if you can, want to avoid driving at night completely. Just drive in the daytime. That is that's all I can really say. And that brings us to tip number 4, Tip number 4 is when you get to the beach, because I'm assuming you're coming down to Baja because you want to camp on beaches. So when you arrive at a beach, you want to get out of your vehicle and you want to walk the beach, because the sand can be super deceiving and they can go from hard packed kind of sand dirt to deep sand like that super quickly, and getting stuck is not a fun time. So you just really want to make sure that when you arrive, you walk the beach and you kind of have an idea of how deep sand can be in your rig, so you don't push it and get stuck like I did. Especially the first time I came down, I got stuck quite a few times and had to spend, you know, hours getting myself out. It's not a lot of fun. And that brings us to tip number 5, which is, if there are 3 products, in my opinion, that you're gonna want to bring down here, if you're gonna bring anything, it's track mats, an air compressor, and also some sort of shovel, because there's times that you're gonna end up getting stuck in the sand, even if you're careful. Like this time around, it happened to me. I got to the beach, I was smart, you know, I got out, walked the beach, was like, yep, this is way too deep, I'm just gonna turn around, continue down. I was on the East Cape, so I was like, I'm just gonna turn around, continue down the East Cape and find a better spot for myself. And while I was turning around, everything sort of looked kind of hard packed sand around, but I didn't realize that in between the two sort of like road areas that were nicely packed, there was like a section of like super deep sand. Ended up getting stuck in that. The track mats didn't help me that time. I had to get a tow, but the track mats have helped me in kind of situations like that, and a shovel also to help dig, you know, your tires out of the shovel. Dig your tires out of the sand with a shovel, and then also the air compressor, because if you take air out of your tires, it does help with sand. You're definitely going to want those 3 products. If anything, if I can recommend 3 things to bring, it would 100% be those 3 things. So tip number 6 involves the military checkpoints, because when you're driving in Baja, you're gonna be going through military checkpoints. When you're heading south, it's a lot, you know, chiller. They might just wave you through. They may not even come up to your vehicle. They might come up and ask you a few questions. But then going north, you're definitely gonna get asked questions, and sometimes they're gonna come in your van and they're gonna totally search it. So yes, a lot of people here do speak English. A lot of people I've met, they speak it very well. But in my experience, going through the military checkpoints, some of them, they don't really speak English very well. And if there's 3 like words or phrases that I would know going through, which makes it a lot easier, because I've had like no issues going through, especially when I've used these words or phrases, is venimos de, which that means we're coming from. So you would say like venimos de Loreto, if that's the last city you're in, and then after that you would say vamos a La Paz, if that's the next city you're gonna go to. And then on top of that, if you say vacaciones, which is like on vacation, that usually just gets you waved right through. So those are the 3 things, 3 words or phrases that I would know in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish really at all, as you could probably tell from me saying that. Not very good at it, but I feel like if you try to speak it and kind of say those phrases, even if it's not that great, like kind of like me, because I don't really speak Spanish, they tend to appreciate it. And in my experience, they'll just sort of just wave you through if you say that, especially once they know that you're just sort of on vacation. And that brings us to our last tip. And the last tip is, I would not leave any sort of personal items outside your van overnight at all. Like regardless if you are totally alone on the beach, because the harsh reality is, a lot of people here are less fortunate than Canadians or Americans. So things tend to grow legs and disappear overnight, because even if you're totally alone on this beach like I am right now, I'm like the only van here, some locals will just show up really early in the morning. They might just play their music, drink some beer, and then leave. And I've never had anything stolen because I've never left anything out of the van, but I've been around where people have left things out of their van and it does get taken, like chairs and stuff. And there was even this one scenario where there was like a generator this guy had that was like chained to his van, and this guy was like literally trying to steal the generator and cut the chain. So just don't leave anything outside your van. Don't get complacent or comfortable because you think you're totally alone, because people do show up like late at night or early in the morning, depending on how you want to look at it. And so that kind of wraps it all up. Those are my 7 tips that will definitely make your trip down to Baja a lot smoother, because I've had little to no issues just following these tips. So I hope that, you know, helps anyone out there if they're thinking of traveling down to Baja. And yeah, thanks for watching. And if you like this, leave a like, and see you guys in the next video.